Welcome to Kansas Ag Report. I'm Ken Rogers. On this week, a very special guest, former Ag Secretary and former Kansas Congressman Dan Glickman will join us. He's got a new book out called Laughing at Myself, My Education in Congress, on the Farm, and at the Movies. We'll talk about his storied career and kind of the way things are right now in public service with politics being the way they are. We'll also have updates from Kansas Corn, Kansas Wheat, and the Kansas Farm Bureau, and our weekly updates from the Kansas Livestock Association and market information from Pinion.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots ag organization representing the state's farm and ranch families since 1919. KFB.org. And the Kansas Wheat Commission, lending in the adoption of profitable innovations from wheat. Online at kswheat.com.
In ag news from agview.net, Kansas Senator Jerry Moran has once again introduced legislation that would relax the U.S. trade embargo with Cuba. The legislation's goal is to open up another avenue for profit for America's farmers and ranchers. Moran says the current regulations are limiting revenue streams for farmers, ranchers, and even manufacturers. A unilateral trade embargo on Cuba blocks Americans' farmers, ranchers, and manufacturers from selling into a market just 90 miles off the U.S. shores. Kansas Farm Bureau President Rich Felt says having the opportunity to export things like wheat, corn, and soybeans to our neighbors down in Cuba would be a win for farming communities across Kansas and even around the country. The U.S. Trade Commission shows that lifting the embargo could potentially increase exports by 166% and bring an additional $800 million to the U.S. economy over 5 years. Although people in the U.S. are eating more vegetables and fruits than they did in 1970, the average U.S. diet still falls short of federal recommendations for the two major food groups, as well as dairy, as provided in the 2020 through 2025 dietary guidelines for Americans. In contrast to the recommended daily 2.5 cups of vegetables on a 2,000 calorie per day diet, people in the U.S. consumed about 1.9 cups in 2018, according to data available from the USDA's Economic Research Service. Now, this represents 76% of the recommended amount, up from 63%, though, in 1970. 2018, U.S. consumers ate or drank an average of 1.5 cups of dairy products per day, or 50% of the recommended 3 cups, the decrease from 1.6 in 1970. Fruit consumption in the U.S., the farthest below guidance at 41% of the recommended 2 cups a day. On average, U.S. consumption of food in the meat, egg, and nut category and grains as well in 2018 exceeded the recommended amount. This data comes from the Loss Adjusted Food Availability Data Series from the USDA's Economic Research Service. And congressional lawmakers spearheading a couple of letters to the administration asking USDA and the Department of Justice to appeal a recent federal court ruling. If left unchallenged, they say the ruling will cause tremendous financial harm to American hog farmers. Starting at the end of the month, it would take effect the end of June of the USDA new swine inspection system, allowing for faster harvest facility line speeds. Find more ag news at agview.net. Stay with us for more in a moment.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Grain Sorghum, growers working together. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. grassandgrain.com. And agview.net, serving the Beef Belt and Western Corn Belt with reliable and relevant agriculture information. agview.net.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas corn, with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
Many seed companies claim to offer the latest genetics, but how many have tested those genetics in soils just like yours? The Oldie Seed Know to Grow research program has fully tested the latest seed genetics in soils that are right in your neighborhood. The Oldie Seed Know to Grow program can recommend the best performing hybrids from technologies like Enriched, Extend, and Liberty Link that will optimize the yield and profit of every acre on your farm. Contact Oldie Seed today.
What if U.S. soybean meal were more than a commodity? If seed companies and the soybean checkoff built a better variety? That future is here. The time is now. To meet end-user demands, the soybean checkoff is investing in the compositional quality of soybeans, including meal. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
Former Kansas Congressman and former USDA Secretary Dan Glickman. Out now is his book, Laughing at Myself, My Education in Congress, on the Farm, and at the Movies. Secretary Glickman, always a pleasure to talk with you.
Well, great to be with you, Ken.
Well, let's talk about this book. I mean, what a storied career. You could probably write a book about each one of these items.
Well, I just thought that I had lived this interesting life, and frankly, I wanted to get a book out before Pat Roberts did, because then I could at least tell a few jokes and stories before he would get to me. So I was successful at that.
We'll talk about some of the things in the book, but let's talk about that. I mean, we see politics today being more of gotcha. A lot of us want to go back to the days of the Dan and Pat show at the state fair and other big events.
Well, we had a very good relationship, and Pat, myself, Senator Dole, Senator Kassebaum, at least on farm, agriculture, and the things that affected Kansas, aircraft, aviation. There were a variety of things. We worked together pretty well, and I think it helped us. I think we got things done. And of course, it was a little different era back then. There wasn't as much toxic atmosphere in politics generally, whether it was in Kansas or in the country as a whole, as there is now. So, I don't want to be overly nostalgic, but those were good days.
Well, and of course, as time marches on, we have social media and other ways of communication that have changed things. But I guess, Secretary, let's go back to the beginning. A young man in a family of very humble beginnings in Wichita, to where you were really at the forefront of a lot of modern history.
Well, I was very lucky. I had good parents, which makes a big difference. And but I discovered early on that focusing on agriculture and food issues was a better ticket to success in politics. And so I made that a big part of my early career, and it certainly helped to benefit not only me, but hopefully help the people in Kansas as well.
The book, Laughing at Myself, is out now by University Press of Kansas. So Secretary Glickman, using the state folks to print the book, we'll tell you how you can get your copy. It is now out in publication, and we'll continue our conversation with Dan Glickman in just a moment.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Livestock Association, supporting members' business interests and meeting consumer demands. KLA.org. Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web at oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. And Kansas Corn, building the future at kansascorn.com.
Many seed companies claim to offer the latest genetics, but how many have tested those genetics in soils just like yours? The Oldie Seed Know to Grow research program has fully tested the latest seed genetics in soils that are right in your neighborhood. The Oldie Seed Know to Grow program can recommend the best performing hybrids from technologies like Enlist, Extend, and LibertyLink that will optimize the yield and profit of every acre on your farm. Contact Oldie Seed today.
We're joined by former Ag Secretary Dan Glickman, a Wichita, Kansas native, out with the book Laughing at Myself, looking at his 70-some year life and all the different things he has done. Of course, Senator Glickman, boy, I'm going to give you a promotion maybe, but I can remember the days when you were a member of the House of Representatives, and even though it was almost a bipartisan delegation to where you had to get along, even though at the time when you were in Congress, so you were in the majority.
Yeah, I was fortunate in the sense that I was always in the majority when I was in Congress, and so that allowed me to become chairman of a subcommittee and basically helped shape the agenda. But we had a lot of issues back then. We still have today. We have variable grain and livestock prices. We have the impact of natural disasters, and of course, the whole COVID epidemic impacted agriculture as much as any other part of the American economy, which we didn't have back then. But it was a time where I think there was a seriousness on part of the Kansas legislative delegation to work together, and I think it made a big difference.
We could spend a lot of time talking about your days at USDA, but shepherding through some farm bills, I would guess being in that corner office at USDA was a little bit different than on the floor of Congress and being on the Ag Committee trying to get a farm bill done.
At USDA, I had a lot of power, but the authorities came from Congress. And in Congress, I had less power, but more freedom. And so in Congress, I didn't have to worry about saying something that would impact the president negatively or maybe upset him. And because he was essentially my boss during that time period. But certainly at USDA, I was able to take those authorities Congress gave us and implement them with over almost 100,000 people who worked in the agriculture department on a whole variety of issues, from the Kansas type of issues, which were commodity issues, livestock issues, but the Forest Service, for example, which was the biggest part of the Department of Agriculture, which we didn't have a lot of Forest Service activities in Kansas. I wish we did, but we didn't have all that many trees, so to speak. But and food and nutrition and hunger and food safety. So the jurisdiction was quite significant, and it allowed me to have a national impact.
Before we wrap up this segment, I want to talk briefly after your time at USDA. Here's a guy that has spent a lot of his career in agriculture. Now your Motion Picture Association of America. I mean, talk about what kind of experience that was.
Well, it was a strange experience. I would joke that I tell people I used to grow popcorn, then I sold popcorn. But the truth of the matter is that there were a lot of parallels. Both agriculture and entertainment were largely export reliant, and they required open markets. And they also had a lot to do with the protection of intellectual property. So, even though there were a huge difference between the two, obviously, there were enough parallels that I learned from my agriculture experience how important it was to sell our products overseas. And about 60% of all television and movies are, in fact, sold overseas. At least they were before the pandemic. So it was a whole different job, but I enjoyed it. But I would say I enjoyed my time in agriculture even more.
Laughing at Myself is the name of the new book out from Secretary Dan Glickman by University Press of Kansas. Mr. Secretary, I assume that this can be purchased just about anywhere.
Yeah, I think so, but I think the KU Press and then Amazon, and I'm sure available at bookstores wherever they exist anymore. You know.
Appreciate it, Secretary Glickman. Great to talk with you, and we'll look forward to talking with you again.
Thank you.
Dan Glickman, former Ag Secretary, former Kansas Congressman, has joined us. His book, Laughing at Myself, now out for purchase. Stay with us, more in a moment.
Premier Farm & Home has what you need to make your lawn the best in the neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Ken. We choose Premier Farm & Home for the professional look that we do ourselves.
Feel free to stop in. You can also visit our website at heycow.com.
Hi, I'm Emily Cope with Kansas Corn, and I'm the Market Development Coordinator and Eastern Kansas Representative. And I want to talk a little bit about some of our upcoming leadership programs this summer. So one of our great young farmer programs is the Corn Corps Leadership Program. This is open and available to all farmers in the state of Kansas who are looking to grow their farming operation and learn about best business practices when it comes to farming. This is a young farmer program, so anyone in the age of 21 to 45 can apply. This past year, we had 10 participants in our Corn Corps class. They were able to meet and do some sessions before the COVID-19 pandemic, and then they'll be wrapping up their year with a trip to Kentucky this August with their domestic learning trip to learn about agriculture and corn production in Kentucky, as well as other different agricultural practices. We're excited again, so this year's class will end up wrapping their year with their trip in Kentucky, and we'll be opening applications this fall again for our Class 5 of Corn Corps. So I would encourage you to check out our website for those applications opening up this fall.
If you get out there and just talk to other people, make friends, make connections, you're going to learn something to take back to your farm. You might teach somebody else, and it's just like at this level, maybe it helps develop leaders who then can go on and go farther, whether it be in Farm Bureau or just in the communities to promote agriculture or whatever that might be.
Soybean seeds are in the ground and the crop is coming up. Now what? In soybean fields planted during April, watch for bean leaf beetles, armyworms, and thistle caterpillars, as the earlier greening of these fields allow a prime environment for these insects to lay eggs. Japanese beetles are likely to appear during June, as agronomists have already noticed grub populations. Check along field edges and pasture borders to monitor defoliation thresholds as the soybeans grow. For soil that sits in continuously damp areas of the field, damping off root disease in untreated soybeans caused by Pythium and Phytophthora may become an issue. This is characterized by soft, rotted seeds pre-emergence or wilted plants post-emergence and can result in a replant. When it comes to weeds, Palmer amaranth and other weeds are already emerging, so timely post-emergence herbicide applications are key to managing problematic weeds. Extension specialists encourage individuals to pay attention to mix order when preparing spray application mixes. For example, glyphosate should follow the Enlist chemical when using that product, and the volatility reduction agent should be added first when using Extend. For dicamba applications, such as Extend, a mandate set in 2020 requires an approved pH buffering agent or volatility reduction agent to be included for all applications. A number of tools exist for farmers that assist in managing seasonal issues, including the Take Action website and mobile app. More is available on this initiative at iwilltakeaction.com.
What if sustainability were synonymous with U.S. soy? If energy efficiency, water quality, and soil health help define U.S. soy's value, that future is here, the time is now. To meet end-user demands, the Soybean Checkoff is committing to sustainability that's achievable, worthwhile, and enduring. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Picture in your mind your favorite wheat foods, a pasta dish, a loaf of warm bread, or a pizza crust. However you like to eat your wheat, the latest dietary guidance and expertise want you to make every bite count by including a mix of whole and refined grain foods in your diet. Whole wheat products, which contain the entire seed of the plant, have proven benefits for weight control, reduction in heart disease, and prevention of type 2 diabetes. Enriched or refined flour starts with the flour produced from just the endosperm, one of 3 distinct parts of the seed that contains protein. But some nutrients lost in the milling process are added back to the flour, in addition to fortifying flour with added nutrients like iron and folic acid. The Dietary Guidelines for Americans 2020 to 2025 recommended whole grains constitute at least half of total grain consumption, with refined grains making up the other half. The Grain Foods Foundation has outlined the research supporting how this mix of whole and refined grains is important to a healthy lifestyle. The published consensus statement detailed the scientific studies linking greater whole grain intake to nutrition and other health-related benefits. Grain Foods Foundation also outlined the findings of a panel of nutrition experts who discussed the contributions of whole and refined grains to the diet. The panel concluded, grain foods contribute nutrient density to the diet, meaning an increased amount of beneficial nutrients in a food product. Learn more about this research at grainfacts.com/research.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
For Kansas farmers who are familiar with growing grain sorghum, exports can make up a critical part of growers' bottom lines. That's why there is a whole lot of optimism as sorghum planting in Kansas heats up this month. According to the USDA's Economic Research Service in May, U.S. agricultural exports in fiscal year 2021 are projected at $164 billion, up $7 billion from the February forecast, led by increases in corn, soybeans, and livestock, poultry, dairy products, as well as grain sorghum. China is forecast to remain the largest market for U.S. agricultural exports in fiscal year 2021, followed by Canada and Mexico. Fiscal year 2021 U.S. grain and feed exports are forecast at a record $41.2 billion, up $3.4 billion from the February forecast driven by corn and sorghum. Sorghum exports specifically are forecasted at $2.4 billion, up $300 million from February's projection on both higher unit volumes and volumes driven by demand from China. Both factors point to increased production of grain sorghum this fall. And for growers choosing to irrigate their grain sorghum, you can optimize your yield by keeping in mind a few key points according to Dr. Brent Bean, Agronomy Director with the Sorghum Checkoff, such as keeping soil moisture maintained above 30% to a soil depth of 3 feet, using irrigation early in the growth stages to establish uniform stand, and the most critical time to irrigate when soil moisture is lacking, the boot stage, when head emerges at the top of the plant prior to blooming and grain set. Trials over the year have demonstrated how adequate soil water at this stage will greatly enhance yield. For more growing tips, visit Dr. Bean's Agronomy Insights at sorghumcheckoff.com. And for Kansas Grain Sorghum, this is Adam York.
Grain sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
The time of year has arrived when the combination of high temperatures, elevated humidity, low wind speeds, and high solar radiation can put livestock at risk for heat stress. To help producers be aware of and understand weather conditions that could adversely affect livestock health, the resources section of KLA.org has a link to daily heat stress maps from the National Weather Service. The maps estimate general stress level trends for livestock over a 7-day forecast period. Veterinarians and animal scientists say effective strategies for mitigating heat stress include feeding schedules that avoid the internal heat buildup animals experience with normal digestion during the hottest part of the day, Increasing airflow around confined areas by taking down winter windbreaks, including hay barriers, will offer relief, as will providing shade where possible. The use of light-colored bedding, such as chopped hay or straw, will help reduce the heat load on animals. Additionally, producers should consider the use of additional water tanks as summer intake is greater than normal. Avoiding intentional movement of animals is recommended as well. Wetting pen surfaces and animals also can be effective if done in a manner that does not increase humidity. When wetting animals, experts suggest using large droplets, not a fine mist, to saturate the hair coat, as this provides.
Premier Farm & Home has what you need to make your lawn the best in the neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Ken. We choose Premier Farm & Home for the professional look that we do ourselves.
Feel free to stop in. You can also visit our website at heycow.com.
Good day. I'm Derek Hermish with Pinion, a division of K-Coe Isom. If you enjoy looking at weather maps and watching forecasts, you got to be loving these last 2 weeks. There's a lot riding on every updated forecast that comes out with the grain markets. Corn specifically bouncing to and fro based on more rain chances or less. There was a new development, though, at the end of last week that could have some lasting effects beyond the raindrops we do or don't get. It was announced last week that the Biden administration might be interested in pulling back on the biofuel mandates as they exist in current form. It is speculation in DC politics at this point, and you might do as well trying to outguess the weather. But biofuel demand was renewed and re-energized under the first 6 months of the Biden administration as opposed to the Trump administration. That, combined with oil and gas suppliers needing a little more time to get going full strength after a pandemic shutdown, led to a robust demand for ethanol and biodiesel that we haven't seen for a long time, if ever. If that is removed, you could go from riding the current downstream to paddling upriver when it comes to corn prices moving higher. The weather we are currently mixing in has provided a pretty big paddle thus far, but we may run out of reserves if it starts raining. I'm Derek Hermish. Have a good day.
And that's our show this week. Join us online for more at KansasAgReport.net or on our social media channels. We sure appreciate you joining us each and every week. I'm Ken Rogers. We'll look forward to seeing you next time on the Kansas Ag Report.
There's so many people that come here across the state, being able to meet all sorts of people from seeing what their different backgrounds and the things that they grow and the workshops that they have here to kind of see what other people are thinking and people in their expertise, you know, that you can take back home and maybe implement or at least investigate more if it's something you want to do.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Premier Farm & Home has what you need to make your lawn the best in the neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Ken. We choose Premier Farm & Home for the professional look that we do ourselves.
Feel free to stop in. You can also visit our website at heycow.com.